Welcome to the S.J. Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Well, hello and good day. I was going to say evening because it's evening for me, but anybody might be listening to this at any time of the day. So thank you so much for being here and being a guest. Today I have Carice Anderson, and I'm so excited to talk about a book that she has right now and some really big things kind of in leadership and how we can learn to look within ourselves, first of all, be honest and authentic all the time. And that's when our best selves can be really procured. So, without further ado, hello. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I'm super excited about our conversation.
Yeah, me too. And why don't we just start at the beginning, the introduction? Let us know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into the book.
Well, as you've said, my name is Carice Anderson. I am from the booming metropolis of Huey Town, Alabama, population 16,000.
Oh,
You're like, Huey Town? That does not sound like a booming metropolis. But yeah, I grew up there, went to Catholic school from kindergarten through 12th grade, grew up in a family very close-knit. I think I always say kind of the four themes of my life growing up, the first 18 years were family, spirituality, music, and education. Those four kind of ruled my life for those first 18 years. I went to University of Alabama for undergrad, majored in marketing, had no real clue what I was doing. And I often say that, my career kind of happened in, I would say, three phases. I think the first phase was, before I went to business school, second phase after business school, and then the third phase is when I moved to South Africa and lived there for 10 years.
wow.
And I just moved back to the US last year, and I guess began the fourth phase of my career. So that's, a little short intro on me.
I love that. And that gives you so much when you travel around the world like that. I mean, other than, being from a small town, I mean, how was that to just kind of get outside of your own space and see all of the things that were happening? It opens your eyes to so much, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, and I didn't leave the country for the first time until I think I was 23 years old. And, so to go from that to living outside of the country for 10 years was just a huge leap because a lot of people I know don't even have passports, or have
Right.
never really left, like North America.
Exactly. Right. I mean, I think when I went to Mexico, you still didn't need a passport.
Yeah, exactly. Or you go to the Caribbean, right? I mean, they're very welcoming places, right? They want you to come there. When you go to, just a real foreign country, it's just like, who are you?
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
There you just gotta fit in. You gotta
Yeah.
figure it out. So it was a huge learning curve for me, but one that I'm so glad I took the leap and made.
Oh, that sounds incredible. Tell us about what got you started in writing. Have you always liked to write? Where did you begin that love of writing?
It's funny,
Purpose,
Sarah.
right?
I know, right? When I was a little kid, I loved to read and write. I was a huge, reader. I used to read a lot of mystery books like
Oh,
Nancy
love
Drew and
that.
the Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
I was that person. And I read a lot of biographies too. I've always loved learning from the lives of other people. And I used to, write. I'd write stories and poems but then, as a lot of us do, right? People tell you do something where you can pay
Make a
your own
living.
bills. And that was not reading and writing. At
Yeah.
least that's not what was sort of communicated to me. And so I majored in business.
Hmm.
And, I've got two degrees in business, my undergrad, and then I also have an MBA. And, once I moved to South Africa, I started working at McKinsey and Company. And I just, I was coming across a lot of young professionals there and other places. And I saw that they were extremely frustrated
Mm.
and extremely, lost, a lot like I was 14 years earlier. I think why I was surprised at that though was because I was like, well, you kids have the internet. I'm dating myself now. When I came out of undergrad, the internet was 5 pages long and you could get through it in about 7 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So it was not really a resource. But then I'm looking at these young people, I'm like, you all have the internet, you have online courses, you have audio books, you just have a wealth
Crazy.
of knowledge out here. How do you all not know some of these things? But I realized sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you
Yeah.
don't even know the questions that you should be asking. So there could be this treasure trove of information, but if you don't know you should be looking for it, it's pretty much useless to you.
Yeah.
And so I thought I would write a book that basically says, here are the things you need to be looking for. Here are the questions that you need to be asking. Here are some of the mistakes that I made early in my career, because there is no sense in other people repeating the exact same mistakes that I made in 1998. Go make new mistakes. Don't make the
Exactly.
same ones, right? I can't keep you from being human and making mistakes, but I can keep you from making the same ones I made.
Yeah.
And so that's really what the book is. It's just literally a brain dump of what I wish somebody had told me when I was,
Right.
22, 25, 27, 31, you know.
Exactly. No, isn't that the truth? And our education system, I mean,
Mhm.
bless her heart, is just
I know.
not set
No,
up for real life.
it is totally, but if you think about it, a lot of professors are purely academics.
Yeah.
A lot of them have not worked in the corporate world, and
So
we
true.
appreciate what they bring to the table,
Mhm.
but I think it's incomplete, and that's one of my, ultimate dreams is I would love to make this a college course, or create an online course so that more
That's
people could have access to it. Because that was the other thing for me, Sarah. I've worked at really large blue chip companies, and I think about all the hoops I had to jump through
mm,
to get into those companies. I had to do well in high school, and I had to do well in university. I did well in grad school. I just don't believe everybody should have to jump through all of those hoops to get access to this information. So
mhm.
I really wanted to democratize the access to those unwritten rules of success in high performing environments. So,
Yeah.
I often joke, I paid over $100,000 to go to Harvard Business School, but I'm giving you this book for $18.95. So I think it's a great deal.
Yeah. Let's look at it. Show us the book.
I think it's a steal.
I
So
love that.
my face is on the front. One of my friends keeps telling me, he's like, Carice, you're going to age and your face is not going to look like.
That's okay. That's when it was passion, right? That's when it
There
was
you
like
go.
needed to be there. I
Exactly.
agree. I agree. Oh, that's fantastic. So tell us about intelligence isn't enough.
Mm.
Like, what was the thought? I mean, obviously, it kind of gave us an idea of that,
Mm.
an info dump on that.
Right.
What can people expect when they go into that to find how to process that?
Yeah. I often say that the framework for my book is know yourself, know others, know your environment, then integrate the knowledge of those three to build a personal brand and a communication style that allows you to have maximum impact. And so my book is all about impact. I really don't just want people to buy my book, even though I appreciate that. I don't want you to just read it. That's not even enough for me. I really want you to pick out 3 to 5 things that you could do tomorrow, in 60, 90 days, in a year, that could really make a difference in how you feel about yourself, the quality of your relationships at work, your understanding of the environment you're working in, and ultimately your personal brand and how you communicate. I
Yeah.
really just, I feel like we spend so much time at work. We
Mm,
either are at work, we're thinking
so
about work, we're
true.
driving to work, we're getting dressed to go to work. We need
Right?
to enjoy this experience.
Yeah.
And
Ah,
and I just want people to have more fun and have more impact at work. And so
yeah.
my book, the last chapter of my book is all about how do you bring all these concepts that I've shared, you know, into action, because I ultimately want you to do something with it. The other thing that I will say that I think also makes my book unique is that, obviously I'm bringing experiences from my time working in the US and in working in South Africa.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to work for a multinational consulting firm. And so I got a chance to coach and facilitate people in North America and Europe and in Africa. And because of that, my network is quite extensive. And so I interviewed 30 successful leaders, and I have sprinkled their quotes throughout the book.
I love
And so
that.
I wanted to really share, not just, this isn't just my opinion, but also I'm bringing their opinions, because I didn't want this book to be an American book. I don't want it to be a South African book or a European. I want it to be like a global book that
Yeah.
shares universal success principles. And so the people that I've interviewed, they've worked in financial services and private equity and nonprofits and healthcare and the beauty industry. So I really tried to get a wide range of people as well. And they've, worked, lived, been educated in Africa, North America, and Europe. And so I just wanted, anybody to be able to pick up this book and get a lot out of it and see, like I said, that there are some things that are just universal.
Yeah.
No matter what the industry is, no matter the geography, the culture, there are just some things that honestly just work. And I will say, because I don't know if I'm preempting a question you might ask, but one of the themes that came through, two things I would say, is people, really talked about taking ownership, but also relax.
Yeah.
Like do your best, but
Love
don't
that.
just like freak yourself out. Like, oh my gosh, if I make a wrong choice, my life is over and I'm destined to a lifetime of failure and despair. It's like, no, it's okay to make mistakes. That's part of the process. And don't
Mm.
be so eager to get everything now, because there's a reason why things take time,
I
and
love
just
that.
giving yourself that time too. So it's really nice to hear from successful people like,
Mhm.
relax, you're okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't hear that enough. I'm sure that
Mm,
that's something that, self-care, relaxation things that people say, oh, you're being lazy.
absolutely.
You're not, you're being
Mm,
selfish. You're being, but all of those things, then you're not going to be working at top notch when you don't have care for yourself
absolutely.
anyways.
Absolutely.
Is there kind of a defining like um idea that everybody has, like what's the best way to be a good business person? Like
Mm.
is there kind of an idea that you got from all of those people, maybe one thing they all had in common?
Okay, I'm going to cheat and say three.
Okay,
So
yeah, thank you, that's better. I
I'm going to
love
give you
that.
two
Yeah,
extras.
that's great.
I think the first one is knowing your story and managing your mindset.
Hmm.
Everything starts with just understanding yourself. Because I
Yeah.
think a lot of times when we think about leadership, we immediately go to other people and leading other people. But the first person you have to lead is right here. And this is the hardest person you will ever have to lead and the most important, right?
Yeah.
So, really understanding yourself and managing your own mindset, because different situations will pop up. And I promise you, the difference, I'm sure you've seen this in your life, right? You see two people go through a very similar situation and they have very different reactions to it. A lot of
So
that is
true.
mindset.
That
How
is
do
true.
they, glass half empty, glass half full?
Yep.
What do they say? Life is 10% of what happens to you, 90% of how you respond to it, right?
Yeah.
So it's that mindset. And I think when your mindset's in the right place, you can conquer anything.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of, leads to the second one, which is, you know, take ownership.
Hmm.
Take ownership of how you deliver at work, how you show up, how you communicate, how you dress, your social media profiles. Like be intentional and
Mhm.
be deliberate. And I would say the third thing is that success requires collaboration and inclusion.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when you think about the advice that we've gotten about our careers, work hard and put your head down, and you'll be chosen as the knighted one, right? You'll be knighted as the chosen one. And I think we have to acknowledge that a lot of that advice does not feature other people. So you
Mhm.
can get it in your head like, I'm just gonna be successful by myself. But if you talk to anybody who's successful, they've all had somebody to help them.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yep.
Whether it was an entrepreneur who somebody let them sleep on their couch while they were writing their business plan, or read their business plan, or invested in them, or gave them advice. You know what I mean? You need other people. And I think if we recognize that, then I think we'll be more deliberate about learning how to get along with other people and
Yeah.
how to collaborate and how to resolve conflict. Because I feel like those are the
Groundwork.
differentiators, from people that I see that are, because I've seen a lot of really smart people, but they're not as successful as they could be because they don't know how to get along with other people.
Right.
You
Isn't
know,
that
you're
the
lim
truth?
yeah, you're limited in how much you can achieve just by yourself. But I mean, your impact can be infinite if you can try to achieve those results with, through, and for other people.
Mm. I love that. I love that. It reminded me, a friend of mine just posted a quote that said something about, well, you guys were arguing if the glass was half empty or half full. I drank it, the opportunist. And I just love that. I was
That's
like, that's great.
hilarious. I
Isn't that
love
cute?
that.
And
Yeah,
it's
that is
right, right?
cute.
Take hold of your opportunities and make the
Yeah,
best of them. And if they don't work, try something different.
yeah, yeah,
I
absolutely.
always I always look at bless my parents' hearts. Their steadfast determination to stay in one job for 50 years. And like wow, I couldn't have ever done that. So
Mm,
honor to them, right? At the
yeah,
same
yeah,
time,
for
like,
sure.
oh my gosh. Luckily they were both jobs where they were very busy helping
Mm,
lots of different people. So it wasn't ever anything that was just like typing or so, at a desk or
yeah.
something. But it still amazes me that
Mm,
commitment, that accountability to do that kind of hard work. But
yeah.
it does start with that mindset and
Mm.
learning how to react appropriately, especially, and like you said, get along with people. So important.
I know, right? Because
Yeah.
I'll be honest, Sarah, like the way I felt coming out of undergrad was I was like, well, I'm smart and I've got this piece of paper. And then I went and got another really expensive piece of paper. I was like, I'm set for life. I wasn't really thinking about the role that other people would play
Yeah.
in my career and in my ability to have impact. And so but if you think about school, it is this very like singular solo exercise. And
Exactly.
people think you're just going to carry. And I'm like, that is not work. That is not going to work in the working world. And I think that's sort of maybe a shortcoming of our educational system, like you were saying
A
earlier.
100%. No, I agree 100% that I was just reading something that said the same thing. It said you test alone,
Hmm.
you learn, you grade it alone, you do all of these things alone. Like it's not a working together environment kind of process.
Absolutely.
And how can we expect our kids, teens, young adults to go out and to know how to conflict resolute, right?
Hmm.
Number
Hmm.
one, so
Hmm.
important. But then we don't know how to treat people. And so then we turn into having office bullies, which
Mm.
is a horrible thing. And just the whole process of how do we get ourselves with the right tribe, right? The
Yeah,
vibe,
yeah,
the vibe
yeah.
with your tribe. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
how do we set ourselves up for that kind of what are some steps for success you would tell people?
One of the biggest things I say is just to know your strengths, but to also know your areas of development.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when you know your strengths, right? I know what I bring to the table, but then I also know I don't bring everything to the table. So
Yeah.
then I'm able to create the space for other people who bring things that I don't bring. And I think I need to place value on those areas. It's not like, oh, well, I can't do these things. Psh, let me bring, Sarah over here to do it. It's like, wow, Sarah does the thing well that I don't do. I
Mm-hmm.
want to bring Sarah in. I want to hear Sarah's perspective. I want to leverage Sarah's strengths for whatever it is we're trying to achieve. So for me, when people have a balanced sense of self, it ideally should create space at the table for other people.
100%.
Because if you think about it, when people are arrogant, it repels people.
Mm-hmm.
It does not engage people. It does not make
Yeah.
people want to lean in. But I think when you are confident, you know your strengths, but you know your areas of development, I think it creates that space. And I think for me, that's one of the number one things. I think kind of going back, a little bit to what we were saying earlier is just knowing myself, and constantly working on my character.
Yeah.
That for me is a huge one. I was listening to this minister speak, and he was saying, I'm going to paraphrase. He was quoting somebody
Okay.
else, and I'm going to butcher what he quoted, but it was basically like, you can't build anything bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
You can only build something to the level of your own development.
Mm.
And so and I've seen it. I actually worked for what I affectionately call a start down. And I think part of the reason that organization didn't really, live up to its potential is because of the character of the leaders.
Mm.
You can have
Yeah.
the best idea. I mean, and we see what's happening in the world today with some of our leaders. We won't even name their names, but
Right?
we can see
Bless their
what
hearts.
yeah, bless
Yes.
their hearts. Like you can be brilliant, but
Yeah.
if you're operating from a place of fear and insecurity and dominance and aggression, and feeling like you can run this whole entire business without other people,
Mm.
it doesn't work. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so I
Yeah.
think we have to know ourselves to know, like, okay, I'm operating from a place of fear right now. What can I do to get out of that so that I'm not leading from that space? Because you don't make good decisions when you're operating from fear and you're
Yeah.
operating from insecurity, right? So
Hmm.
I think, having people around you too that can kind of check you on that, that you
Hmm.
that you trust, that you can be vulnerable with, that can coach you, that can sort of make you rise to a higher version of
Yeah.
yourself. I think that's really important.
That
And so
was
those are the
literally my next thought. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
yeah,
you
yeah,
off,
no,
but
no, go ahead.
exactly, coaching, exactly. Like you,
Absolutely.
that's so great for people that are, trying to build something big is to get
Mm,
the best ideas from people who have done it,
yeah.
people who may be in the same thing as you are now, and then somebody maybe who's on their journey so that you
Mm,
can be a voice for them too, to kind of
yeah.
be like mentor, mented, mentee, right? That
Yeah.
doesn't, I'm
Yeah.
sure those aren't words, but yeah, it's so
Absolutely.
when you can kind of create that kind of team or mindset, like you said, then you can build
And I
yourself.
and I, I just want to add one thing. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things sometimes I see, in corporates that people who might be at the top or who are more senior might not necessarily acknowledge there are things I can learn from people that are younger.
Mm.
They can keep me hip and on trend. They might
Yeah.
be able to teach me things about technology. They might have more emotional intelligence than I do. You know what I
So
mean?
true.
So recognizing that everybody has something to teach me. I don't care who it is, right? And the perspective that they bring is something that is important and could help us have the next breakthrough idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you got to invite people to the table who are different than you because you're not going to get innovative ideas from the people who think the same and look the
Yeah.
same and have the same background. Like, you
No.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're going to get the breakthrough ideas from mixing a bunch of people who are different together and see things from a totally different perspective. And that's why I think that's so important. But you got to be a confident person to be willing to open up your space and invite those
Yeah.
people to the table.
Oh, that's fantastic. Where can we go find the book? Is it available online, hardback at the stores? Where does
It
it
is. It's
good? Good.
everywhere, Sarah. Everywhere you get your
Everywhere. I
books.
love
Yes, you
it.
can go on Amazon. You can go to Barnes and Noble.
Great.
You can, and I want to say too, I narrated my audiobook. So if you want to listen to me
Wonderful.
talk for 9 hours and 44 minutes in a nondescript American accent, I toned down my
Oh,
southernness.
that's
I,
great.
I just wanted to be, an American from somewhere in America, right?
Yeah,
So
right,
yeah,
right.
so
Oh,
yeah, so
I
there's a
love that.
paperback, ebook, and audiobook.
Fantastic. Oh, I love that. And it's going to be so good for people who read it, take it forward. Do you have like places in the book people can write notes or anything? Or do
I
you recommend that to
don't.
people like highlight
Absolutely.
this or
Absolutely.
make
Mark
notes?
it up. I
Yeah.
literally, people have, I mean, I don't, I think they may have mentioned this to you, but my book was initially published in South Africa and the UK last year. So I
Okay.
have so many people that, have sent me messages on LinkedIn and
I love
and
that.
who've just talked about and on different social media platforms about how they've gone back to my book when they get into different scenarios or situations at
Yeah.
work. So that warms my heart because I
Love
did
that.
not want this to be a book that you read and then it just collects dust. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted it to almost be like a manual, or a
Right.
guidebook that you refer back to often whenever you get into different situations. So
Absolutely.
that warms my heart.
I love that. No, I love to get feedback too. It's the
Yeah.
best. Great to get feedback from your community, showing that you are bringing value
Yeah.
to those individuals, families, businesses all across the board for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Is there any social media that you want to, if anybody wants to talk to you or reach out
Yes,
about,
I love to connect with
let
people.
us know on websites, anything you have.
Yes. My website is cariceanderson.com. It's very original, I'm sure,
Perfect.
Yeah, and then you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Carice Anderson, just under my name.
Super. Well, that's easy to find you then. I'll make sure that we're connected on all of those too, if
Yes,
we aren't
absolutely.
already. So let's do that. Well, it's been so great having you on. Thank you so much for being patient in the scheduling process while we worked things
Absolutely.
out. And it was so nice to have you here. I look forward to hearing, do you have any second books in the making or any ideas that you might
I've
be
got
flowing?
lots of
I bet
ideas.
you
I
do.
gotta sell this first one though.
Yeah,
So
right.
they'll
So you can put all the rest into fruition, right?
exactly,
I get
exactly.
that. I get that. Well, please go check out her book. Show us that book one more time.
One more
It
time. Just
is
look for my face, guys.
Intelligence Isn't Enough by Carice Anderson. So nice to have you. Thank you again for your time and the value that you're sharing with us through these experiences.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. And thanks for
Yeah.
listening to whoever listens.
Oh, I love it. Great listeners. Thank you, listeners. Have a great day.